Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on that amazing panel. So today we are here to talk about an important topic, accessibility in technology. This is about making digital tools and services usable for everyone, no matter their abilities. As technology plays a big role on our daily lives, making it accessible is very important. So it helps us to create an inclusive world and open us to have new opportunities for innovation. So let me introduce our participants to this roundtable. So we will start with Yai Polito, Head of UX UI Design team in MTS in Barcelona. Javier Florido, Flutter developer based in Granada, working in Barcelona City Council, OSAM for the friends. Ana Benitez, QA tester in junior in Cáceres, working in NDG project. Pilar Garcia, native apps tech lead based in Barcelona, working on top of mobile and other several public projects. And Yekaterin Alexeyeva, product designer based in Brussels, part of the digital experience team from MS. So before starting, I just want to do a couple of questions. Raise your hand if you have been benefit from accessible products or a feature that you have used. Okay, few of you. Okay, how many of you have used subtitles watching any TV series? Okay, so you have used it. So that's a feature that is accessibility. Okay, and who believes accessibility is an important part of a digital innovation? Okay, you have learned. So let's start with this roundtable. And I would like to ask you, Pilar, what does accessibility mean to you personally, and how do you incorporate it into your work routine?
Okay, so for me, when I think about accessibility, I think about quality products. Quality products that have a great user experience independently of the situation and or the abilities of our users. So we have great products that work in every environment to anybody, any hardware, and that we make sure that it's easy to use, that is understandable, and that it makes the life of your clients and user better. So for me, it's hand in hand, really. And then, yeah, I think we mainly focus on the user experience, and we try to always get in the position of the people that are using our products to better adapt them to real daily life, because we see code and sometimes we forget that this is an actual product that people are going to use in the future.
Okay, so, and Yekaterin, what do you think?
Hello? Oh, it's working. So for me, it's a little bit too close. Accessibility goes a little bit outside just like some personal characteristics and more into being inclusive and more into the context. So, for example, in my day-to-day tasks, I make a very big priority and focus on simple things like, for example, text size or white space. And so if those things go unchecked, people who use our products, they can really lose focus very, very fast. They can have problems understanding what it is about and also forget what they want to do. And from this perspective, accessibility really helps to address this friction in the products that we're doing.
Okay, thank you. And Javier, what do you think?
For me, because I agree with what Pilar and Yekaterina said, but because I'm working in the public sector, accessibility is making all the citizens that use the local apps can use those apps. Because it's founded on public money from everyone, so everyone should be able to use that applications.
Great point, yes. So now let's discuss a little bit about collaboration across the teams. So how can different teams work together to ensure accessibility is integrated from the start?
That's actually a good question. In my view, I think actually to work together as just one team from different areas is actually the key to be able to have accessible products in general. Because, for example, in the part of UX UI, we can cover part of the accessibility. In the part of development, they can also cover a part of accessibility. And in the job, for example, from Anna as a QA, she has to ensure that every rule that we have applied is actually working and compliance. So at the end, if I'm working in silos, if I don't communicate, for example, in this case to Javier or to Pilar, how the journey about people who cannot actually see must be, or how a specific component should interact if they actually increase the text, they will miss that specific details in order to make it work. As well as if they are actually experts into trying to optimize the code and also to allow that nothing breaks when they increase the text, is also a thing that they need to communicate to Anna, and Anna should have this knowledge as well in order to be able to test it. So here, we should not work separate, but always together in order to try to ensure a complete accessible journey in any digital product. So feel free to communicate between each other and to share knowledge especially.
Yeah, totally agree. So, and Pilar, what strategies or practices can team adopt to collaborate effectively on accessibility during the development process?
Okay, so what we try to promote in our teams is having a platform or a space when teams can challenge each other, help each other, and have a lively discussion. We have a Teams channel because we are constantly adapting our application, and where it's very much alive. Every day we have, okay, so this is the Figma design. Okay, we are not sure how to adapt it this way. We are thinking of this. We are thinking of expanding it this way or doing this other thing. And then the design team then propose another solution, and we talk through it. And I think that enriches the product a lot because many of us can think of different solutions, and at the end, if we are all collaborating, that's easy. And apart from that, we are trying to build a Confluence space to give as much information to all the teams as possible. Because now that the law is making mandatory to have accessible products, payment products, by this summer, people that are new to this kind of technology or adaptations are a bit lost or get nervous. They are afraid of doing it wrong. What do I have to do? Do I have to follow a checklist? So it's better to have this information already available for everyone. And that, okay, so this is the place to look. You can, maybe you are interested in it and you want to add more information to that and build on the platform, because if we only collaborate 2 or 3 of us, it won't be very good. So it's better that everyone, even if it's for questions, okay, this is not very clear for me, or I don't think this applies to this type of technology, that is also very valuable. So I think these platforms are the key to collaborating and to ensuring that everything is done properly and we are all involved in this.
Yeah, totally agree. That's why it's so important to collaborate. Okay, so now let's explore the relationship between accessibility and usability. So, Anna, how does understanding accessibility help us differentiate the need from usability in practical situations?
Well, I think first of all, we need to understand what I think is the first step, is that in our world, we are so used to all the requirements of the client, or in this case of the app, is we just made that to make possible sorry. Basically, usability is something that is for a specific use, and especially to satisfy some requirements that, in this case, is the client that is the one that make it. In the other hand, in accessibility, is something that is standardized. It's something that must be done for anyone and any product. So this concept that has 2 different meanings needs to be understood. So every strategy, just only design, develop, or just testing, can be refined and can be practical, but also to understand that even though these 2 concepts are so different and impact in different way, can be related to each other and must be one can be exist without the other. So that's the thing.
Yeah, super cool. And Jai, what do you think about that?
Well, I think, I don't know if you can.
Mine neither. I know mine is working. Okay, sorry.
Okay. Basically, as Anna summarized it very well, it is true that we need to understand properly the difference between usability and accessibility. But also, it's a reality that accessibility is also a part of usability. Why? Because if you are creating a product just for a specific target, but at the end, for example, as Javier mentioned later, is a public one, everyone should be able to use it. And if it's not accessible, then your product is not usable, is not offering a good experience, and you are actually limiting the target. So, as Anna explained before, it's true that usability can be also subjective, because every experience and every necessity can vary depending on the needs. But accessibility is pretty straightforward. We can say that it's actually pretty objective. You pass accessibility or you don't. So you really need to try to understand the limitations of every user in order to try to achieve those specific rules. There are many different categories inside accessibility. It's a completely different world, but only by knowing and to have this information is what is going to allow you to meet accessibility and, as final point, to actually have a usable product offering a good experience. So this is more or less the key between the two concepts.
Hello? Okay. Okay, so I think that what you mentioned is exactly what I was going to say on the first question of what is accessibility. So for us, our motto is always that if your application of your products only works sometimes, or in the happy path, or in certain situations, I think it's not a very good product. And you have to make sure that it meets the quality standards, and that is not only, okay, it works if you only use it in this specific way. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, really good point, girls. So moving to a more conceptual level now, okay? So I would like to talk about the relationship between the theory and the practical. The practice. So Anna, come back again to you. How do our theoretical understanding of accessibility align with a common sense approaches in real-world projects?
Well, I think in all aspects of life, everything comes with a balance between the knowledge that you know in practical and the knowledge you know in theory. I think theory is the first step that you need to do, because it's the base that you need to give you context, the ability to understand the problems that will come with these issues. So I think theory is something really important, but I think it's important to keep in mind also that theory it cannot be always applied 100%. So sometimes we need to just think that not everything that, in this case, that we are starting with accessibility must to be applied in our project. Each project is so individual, has their own needs. So even though that theory, as I said, is really important, and in this case that it's a standard that everyone needs to check, I think it's also a balance and intuition that everyone needs to do between this theory and this common sense or practical issue of that. So yeah.
So you have to know the rules to know where and when to break it
And apply it correctly.
really well.
Yeah, totally. And Catherine, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. No? Yes. So I completely agree with what you're saying, and it's a very great question, because we do need to look into the context, because not every project is the same, and this is where you need to know the rules in order to know how to break them. And one of the examples that comes to mind first is, so there are like different levels of accessibility, and they're based basically on the contrast level. So we have like AA, we have AAA. We need to follow a more brighter contrast differentiation for the AAA. And so keeping that in mind, like the different level of contrast, when we think about aesthetics of applications, because we still want to offer a pleasant experience, right? We still want to have interfaces that not only are usable, but they're also delightful in how we use them. And so, yeah, this is here where you really need to know when to break those rules, because in fact, if we follow those accessibility rules all the time, letter by letter, I'm afraid to say, but that our interfaces will all look the same in the end, because those rules, they apply for all in the same capacity. So here, probably the biggest invitation would be not only to learn those rules, and but also know exactly when to apply them and when they make sense.
Yeah. So, and following in that topic, Yai, in your opinion, how does this theory complement or differentiate from the practical common sense when addressing accessibility challenges?
Well, actually, following more or less what Anna and what Katerina just said, because at least in the world of the UI part, sometimes we try to apply a rule and we have a tool to check, for example, the contrast of the colors. And the tool is saying it's actually accessible, but then you are seeing this specific button, for example, and you're saying, whoa, I mean, it's accessible, but it's actually hard for me to read it. So there is actually, with the common sense, has to be applied. And then you need to try to go a little bit more deeper and to try to find other options, because sometimes the specific rule, as Katerina mentioned, is not actually the good solution. Because if we focus too much into just following that rules for people who have different levels of visual impairment, probably people who doesn't have any problem with visual impairment will have a hard time. So you also need to balance a little bit also the appealing that all the PMs and clients actually wants to have very appealing products, and sometimes to make it nicer is not compatible with being accessible. So that makes our job in general pretty much harder. And when there is the extra effort of every expert sitting in here to try to see, okay, how we can fix this. If I do this, or if I break the rule, if maybe I don't follow it exactly like that, but we ensure that every people will be able to use it, then you are doing it fine. So there is more or less a little bit about the difference of when the theory is not exactly the best solution, depending of the needs. I don't know what you guys think about that, but at least Katerina and I have experienced that a lot, and also with App on Mobile, to be honest. What do you think?
Well, for me, well, there are some examples where even it's for example, a workflow can be valid and at the final product can be legally and theoretically accessible, but it may not be the most efficient way. For example, if you have a design team designing something not accessible and you have it checked with an accessibility team, you have to iterate until it's valid, and then you have to develop it, and then again, iterate again with the accessibility team until it's valid. So yes, it's a completely valid process. The final product is accessible, but it took a long time. And sometimes by nature you have to do this, but the final goal would be to remove the accessibility team, because everyone knows accessibility integrating on themselves. So design is accessible, developers know accessible development, and yes.
And that's actually pretty true, because you are wasting a lot of effort and a lot of money by doing that, because they just work completely separated, and then you have these accessibility checkpoints that it can be with foundations like ONCE or Illunion, and they give you some inputs or recommendations, and then you need to go back from scratch and try to fix everything. So there is when, honestly, the work process is not properly done.
Or maybe even if you are in a hurry in the process, in the project, because you have to deliver something, and there's no time for correct those accessibility fixes. You are going to develop it in a hurry, and it's worse. So the quality, is lower.
Yeah.
So if you do this at the beginning and fully integrated, you avoid those mistakes. And in a whole different point, sometimes even our accessibility can be hard to implement, like complex components. La diapositiva. No, la diapositiva.
Okay.
For example, there can be like.
Sorry, Javier. So we are still talking about the theoretical and the common sense.
Yes.
So before moving to the challenges,
Okay.
Do you want to add something about the common sense?
It's that. It was to.
Okay.
So maybe we can start with the challenges, and you can continue. Okay. So Javier, you can continue with the
Yes.
common challenges.
No, maybe there are like by nature hard components that are really complex and are hard to implement the accessibility. So, for example, we have a carousel, which it's a complex gesture item. So, for some people can have like different difficulties to scroll by it. So, one solution is putting a scroll bar and you can move it like manually. So that's like the whole point, that we don't theoretically know a standard to make. So everyone has to design their own.
Yeah, and you also have to know how this works, because in here you could change this. You have the scroll, you have the buttons, but then if you have, for example, voiceover activator, then the gestures are totally different, and you have to take a lot of navigation into account and how these components behave next to each other and the gestures and everything. So yeah, I think there are some particular components that are by nature difficult to use, and also people always try to reinvent things and try to put their own thing, because this is not very clear. There is no accessibility. The new law doesn't say, okay, if you have a scroll bar, you have to do this. No, it has to be accessible by this. And then you have to think of a solution, because it's not clear. Everything thinks of their own solution. So at the end, you have on the market a lot of products that when the user well, that's also why it's important to have a design system. Because at the end, you will have very similar apps, but to work through those apps and those gestures is completely different. The navigation, the gestures, and how the component behaves one with another, it's completely different. So yeah, I'm sorry I got a bit motivated.
I don't know if I can add something, but some of the challenges that I think also is one of the challenges is the exercise of empathy. I think when you're talking about accessibility, you need to think sometimes like how these the objective or the clients that aren't going to use this, how normally they use these technologies, how normally they use their phones, how normally they use a computer. So it's clear that one of the challenges is how empathy is, I think, one of the first steps that you need to do, and how to walk on the shoes of the person that the persons are going to use your technology. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes it can be really difficult, because I think when we are developing something for these characteristics, sometimes it can be really tricky to, just like we said, no, translate these theoretical rules to this practical environment. So empathy, I think it's really good points, and we can all start to think about it like that.
Okay, so I think this is great, because I also wanted to put an example of a product that we built. So that is why I gave this image, because we are Worldline and we are used to payments. We know how terminal works, but our users and customers not so much. So we had a particular issue, because we know that in a post device you have the first check that the card has been read, but the bank hasn't processed the transaction and you haven't paid. Your card has only been read. So in our product, we didn't have any kind of sound of haptic feedback. So when the users and our clients that were very new to post devices, because we are talking about smartphones, so it's your phone that is the post device, so maybe it's not so clear how this works. Well, it works the same. So because we didn't have these sounds, everyone thought, okay, I have paid. Well, no, your card has been read, but you haven't paid. So everyone thought of that, and then as the next day, when they were looking at the payments and all the items that they sold, they noticed that not all of the items were paid. So that was a very important feature that we had to add, because not everyone was looking all the time at the screen. So now we have the first check and also the sound. If you have done the payment or the payment has failed, the device sounds or vibrates, because sometimes this happens in concerts and football games and so on, so very noisy environments, you can hear the sound. So it's very important, because now our clients are like, oh, my phone just did an alarm or a long beep, so I know this has failed, because otherwise, oh, everything went well, it's a success. My phone says everything is a success. So this could lead to as I said, not a very quality product, and yeah, then you have to explain to your client, oh no, this is how they work, but it's very difficult for them to train all the staff and the users to know this. So it's better to always make it as easy and accessible as possible in order not to have then this type of issues, really.
Yes, thank you, Pilar, because I think you gave us a really good example of an accessibility problem. So coming back again to you, Anna, what tools or ongoing maintenance strategies are essential to ensure accessibility remains effective?
Well, first of all, I think one of the first strategies that I think everyone needs to apply is to understand your application at first. I think if you don't really know how to use your own application, for me, my example that I am a tester, I think it doesn't make any sense. So just know exactly how to use your application is the first step to can understand how adapt this application to accessibility. And also one of the things that I think we need to know is that also even though there is a lot of web and online features that can make this automated scan or test about accessibility, I think one of our best tools is our brains, is how we can, just like I said, emphasize with others, how we can rationalize anything, and we can make a solution, a very human solution. So I think just start with empathy, start with with this relationship between the usability and accessibility. Well, then later we will talk about AI, but I think it's a great tool that we can all use. So yeah.
Okay, so just that you mentioned, let's move on and let's look forward. So let's start with you, yeah. So how do you envision the future of accessibility, and how can AI shape the future?
Wow. I think for me, AI can definitely help us to understand a little bit the process and the tools that some people with different disabilities of different categories are dealing with. For example, systems, solutions, support, external ones that we don't know about, that we need to actually deeply understand that in order to adapt our solutions to work like that. So the easy part will be to, of course, you can approach to our organization and to try to meet these users in real, and to try to empathize and to put yourself into their skins. But to be honest, I think AI is an amazing tool that will allow us to crush a little bit more about the information, to understand properly the different categories inside accessibility. How is the real world? How many people can actually have it? And all of that is something that you don't find just in any book or easily on the internet. So yes, take advantage of that, because for sure, I think in general, the AI is going to support a lot the accessibility. At least that's my opinion.
Pilar, do you want to add something?
Well, I wanted to ask. Sorry, I wanted to talk about how AI is shaping right now the accessibility features that we currently have, and also demonstrated that there's a lot of potential for AI in accessibility. So first, I wanted to talk about the Talent Arena. That was an event we attended, thank you, in Barcelona. We gave a talk, and we were very shocked because while the speakers were giving the talk, you have live subtitles that were reproducing in different language in the screens. And this helped us a lot because the event was completely open spaced. So there were a lot of venues, a lot of noise, and it really helped everyone being able to properly listen and understand what everyone was saying independently on the language of the talk, on the noise. So this was a great success, and I think everyone loved that. And then I also wanted to talk about a feature that since I discovered I've been using a lot. It doesn't seem like accessibility, but it's under the accessibility features, and it's the motion dots that are available on the iPhone. I have terrible motion sickness, so I could never look at my phone in a train or a bus or while someone was driving. And this was awful for me because sometimes, I don't know, my partner or a friend was driving and they were like, can you look for a restaurant to go? Or can you look for this? Can you reply to my mom that she's asking me a lot of things and I'm driving? And I was like, I cannot do anything because I get so sick that I would throw up. But last year, on iPhone, they had a new feature that while you are at the phone, it displays some kind of dots that will move with the vehicle. So it automatically detects that you are on a vehicle, that it's moving and so on. So now I can read on the train, I can look at maps, a restaurant, to my agenda, whatever I need. And yeah, it's lovely. And I think it's interesting to think about accessibility outside of the box. It's not only about the placement of the button, the images, the colors, and so on. Like it really goes beyond that. It's honestly a whole feature, and it's just a few dots on the screen. But it completely changed me. So yeah, I think I wanted to encourage you to think about outside the box and think of different ways we can change our products that are not only making a bigger size or just making a noise so they know they haven't paid. And okay, that is it for me.
Katerina, yes.
Yeah, so it's actually amazing in how many different ways we can address the accessibility, like different things about it, like haptics, like motion sickness, for example. And I just wanted to add maybe one point that maybe not so obvious to all of us, is that here, like being a pay tech, our vocabulary, the language we use, it's also a big point how we make it more accessible to people who are not used to that in their day-to-day tasks. And I think together with AI, there is like a huge potential to make that data like accessible and also understandable. So, for example, with AI, the whole vocabulary and terminology, it could be explained not only like in simple terms, but also perhaps in simplified or personalized terms. So basically, like independently on the experience or the profession, like any kind of person who is using our products could go to like see the transaction data and make sense out of it without like breaking his head and having a headache and like going and searching through the internet on the Wikipedia. What exactly does that mean? Like that would be, and I think this is here like a huge potential how we can utilize. And the point as well that I would like to communicate that the like our terms and terminology, that's like also something that we can look from the accessibility lens. And there is a great deal of things that, we can do about it.
Okay. I don't know if Javier wanna...
Or, for example, like when you have images, you have alternative text, so AI can describe the image and it can be customized to the user, so it can describe more with more detail or not, or with so many options, and it's personalized to the user, and it's not one alternative text that can be done can be done by someone who doesn't know how to describe that. So it's yes. That.
Anna, do you want to add something? Okay.
Well, I think all my colleagues said most of the things. I think it's really all good points. Just to summarize, I think what it's really important and what we would talk about is that accessibility is something that it's a really human activity, a really human exercise, because it's all about how include everyone. So it will be mandatory, but I think it's anyone has to know about this stuff and really include in our daily basis, because it's the most human thing that we can do. So just say that this is really human. So even though we have this AI, this intelligence artificial that must be included because it's a really great tool and can give us so much time and so much perspective. I think the main exercise has to be done by us, by the designers, the testers, the developers, and to know how this theory can be understood and just make this theory a next scenario that is common nowadays. It's not just a rule. It's a scenario that happens every day to many people. So to know that and apply that to our daily basis, I think is important. And to I think it's our task or it's our duty to make that possible. So I think to summarize this is us.
Yes. Thank you, Anna, because you have summarized our roundtable very well. So thanks all of you for your good ideas or your good discussion today. I don't know if we have any question in the room, or yes?
Okay. So first of all, thank you, everyone. I think it was a really good topic. I think sometimes you have to raise awareness of accessibility because not everyone is as lucky as everyone. I have, until I wasn't friends with a friend from university, I didn't realize that the same application, the same video games that I would play were so much different from his perspective because he has a disability, and it brought me so much interest in accessibility and how from a designer perspective it can be changed and it can be improved a lot. So with this in mind, I had this question maybe for the designers. I really like the talkback function, and I think it's really interesting. How would you design which elements have to be important to use in the talkback? So, for example, the carousel example. I think some elements do not have to be talked, but other ones do have to be brought to attention to the user. So how would you choose which ones?
Actually, one exercise that we really like to apply is that we design for a visual experience, but we also need to design for an audio experience. So that point that you mentioned is actually like that. When you are seeing, let's say, an application, you are seeing everything from the top to the bottom or from the left to the right. But maybe a person who cannot see, they need to see first a call to action that is super important, that is always fixed on the bottom. So there is when you need to share with the developers, our colleagues here, in order to indicate to them. So for the audio experience, don't read it just in the specific sequence. We need to prioritize that. And there are a lot of different items that still need to be read because they need it, but maybe the order is not as is just putting onto the screen. So you need to think about what do I need to see, what do I need that person to hear, what is the first option, and based on that, you deliver to or discuss with them the audio experience, which is totally different from the visual one, which is a little bit more complex for the designers, but it's also part of our job. I don't know if you want to add something.
Yeah, I want to just add one thing. What Yaya is saying is like testing. testing will gonna tell for sure which features could be omitted, which features work, because in fact there is no like a golden rule that can be applied to every context. That what we mentioned already before, everything is very situational. It depends on the project and on the goals, and like only like through rigorous testing and iteration, this is where we can actually be very confident to say like exactly what works, what doesn't work, what could be changed, and what definitely needs to stay.
Okay, and if I may add, yeah, is it, so you use Figma for visual design. Do you use any other tool for this kind of audio design? Or maybe just a document or something like that?
So it will depend, because for example, if it's for a website and you can actually try to read it, you have to, in Figma you cannot read it, so there is any plugin, unfortunately. I really hope that somehow the AI can actually help us with that, or any other tool. But if you have, for example, a prototype and you can actually open it into the browser, there are a lot of different toolbars, let's say like this, that you can implement on the browser. And if you have a developed app, definitely you go to the native one. So the accessibility features for Android or for iOS, they actually should work. That happens in tap on mobile. We thought that we were designing properly, and at the end, the toolbar was actually lacking, and we need to go back to basics. That's what Pilar said, that is a living project in this case, working collaborative, but unfortunately for design, no. So what we normally do is that the strategy that you implement visually, you need to very quickly or simultaneously think about which is going to be the experience or the journey for a person in audio. And then, as Katerina said, you need to test it. That will be our recommendation, at least, from practice.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, I think that we don't have more time,
Yes.
so thanks everyone for joining, and see you.
Thank you.